board meeting. This is October 3rd, 2019 for the Jefferson County Local Development Corporation.
October 4th, isn't it?
And we're opening that up to the privilege of the floor. None. We all received minutes from our September 5th meeting. Is there any additions and or corrections?
No, sir. Make a motion on the acceptance presented. Couldn't say what I meant.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carries. Treasurer's report.
So this is our last report for the year, so everything is there all totaled. And you can see we're just a smidge short on the revenue side here, and we did better than, we spent less than on the expense side. So overall year to date, on the bottom is page 6 of your packet, we're 116,000 income over expenditures. So that's that. That's page 7, 8, and 9 are expansions of the 3 major programs, which comprise the majority of the LDC's activities. Going to page 10 of your packet is our balance sheet, and our quick assets have virtually remained unchanged from the prior month. Our receivables are slightly down about 30,000, and total current assets are down about 23,000. Total assets are down about 25,000 from prior month. Total liabilities down 35,000 from prior month, and total capital is up about 9,500. The page 11 of our packet is some of our outstanding loans, receivables, if you will. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead to anything. So that's the treasurer's report for 12 months ending October 2019.
Any questions? Entertain a motion in a second.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Governance Committee?
Governance Committee, I guess I'd reference page 17. As under our annual charge to review, bylaws, mission statements, policies and procedures, we met on September 12th. We had no proposed changes to the bylaws or mission statement. So I guess I would move the motion to approve the governance committee's recommendations. Approve resolution, what's the number? Okay.
Resolution number 1003, 2019-01.
Second. In case we can move it to the floor and see if there's any board members' concerns outside of the committee. If not, move to adopt it.
We have a motion in a second. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Personnel Committee. So, the Personnel Committee did meet. We have a resolution, and it's number 1003, 2019.02, and it's to establish the percentage of profit share for the year ending 9/30, 2019. And the Personnel Committee has recommended a 3% share. That's our portion of the contribution to the retirement plan. And with that, I've entertained a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to accept the resolution as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. We also have a resolution number 1003, 2019-03, and it was for the CEO's salary increase of 2% and a one-year extension to the current contract with a 30-day notice period from Mr. Alexander should he decide to leave sooner. And I would entertain.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll congratulate you in 30 days.
Nominating committee. Lisa.
Okay, so the nominating committee met on Thursday, September 12th, for the purpose of providing a slate of officers, and also to make note that Rob's term expires at the end of the year, and that the County Board of Legislators needed to be advised to reappoint Rob, as he has indicated he'd like to continue serving another term.
If you can put up with me,
We
I'll stay.
appreciate that. And you'll see the slate has not changed from the current slate. The people that are serving as chairman right now is Dave Converse, vice chair Ed Waldriff, treasurer Rob Aliasso, and secretary Kent Berto. And they all have agreed to continue in the next year in those terms. So I would like to make a motion to accept the slate.
Resolution 1003, 2019-04. It's for the election of officers. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you, I guess.
Congratulations, I guess.
Moving right along, Alternative Energy Committee.
Well, I'm gonna wing this because Bill's not here today. He's at an alternative or solar symposium, an all-day thing, and I'd rather have been here to give you a 5-minute update than sit all day through it, but.
Is that a state function he was at? Is that?
I think it's an organization.
I think it was locally put together, wasn't it? Well,
No,
regional.
It's a regional, national grid
NYSERDA,
center.
there's some, it's for developers, it's for local governments, zoning, those type of things, various things, all they think. We've had several meetings, and it's going to culminate in the IDA meeting. We're prepared. We've had, how many meetings with Oya? 3 or 4?
More than
Meetings
2.
with Oya. And there's an inducement resolution on the IDA for a pilot tax. We've met with the taxing jurisdictions. I believe you've all read the article where it began with a hiccup by us failing to invite the town to the first meeting. That's been settled. There was some differences, opinions on special districts versus taxes, but I think we have those all worked out. So the taxing jurisdictions are on board with that pilot agreement as of last I heard, and we'll be moving forward with that one. We have introduction meetings with 2 other solar companies coming up in the next, sometime in the next month, being Boralax and EDF, or is it Geron, excuse me, or do we have EDF too?
I think we may have all 3. It's hard, one of them is not yet.
From my perspective, Oya was the easiest to deal with because it was a real good project, and the it's a smaller project than we're going to be dealing with. They came to us after they had all their local approvals. Unlike these large projects that at the very beginning, it's probably going to be 2 years before they even can think about it.
And Oya did not require Article 10, correct?
That is
Right.
correct. Have not heard any more on Norbit Solar, which is in Chameau, but I know there was a recent meeting that we'll probably be informed of later. That's pretty much where we are.
I got a question, just as a clarification, so it's not misrepresented. The pilot agreement is proposed, and we're moving forward with discussion later today. So that
There-
somebody doesn't misrepresent what you actually said. Right?
We have an inducement resolution that will be discussed in the IDA meeting.
Perfect. It just-
Okay.
Because it was said differently, I didn't want it misrepresented in the
There's a-
recording or
As
written.
I look at the agenda, there are 3 resolutions. There's the environmental resolution, there's an inducement resolution, along with that will come a public hearing established, and then there's the preliminary agreement, and I think we're to the point where we publicly go over what the terms of the agreement are at that time.
I know what you meant, others may not have. So, just giving
We got
a clarification.
This was not, is not going to be a deviation. This falls within our uniform tax exempt policy.
But the ones coming down the pike will be deviations, right?
Based upon the county's policy, I believe, yes.
Well, based on ours.
Based on
Right.
UTEP also.
You know, our UTEP is 25.
Right, the Article 10 ones would be a deviation.
any article.
Yep.
By the way, Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to Paul's report, I want to thank Bill and Paul for leading us through on and their committee activities. It's been a bit of a circuitous time because, as Paul points out, this was the first one, but it was a good one because Mr. Rossetti and his crew have been enormously cooperative as we try to get the details of these things worked out. What Paul does not know, I got a call last night from Mr. Rossetti confirming that things are moving along well, so our inducement resolution falls at a perfectly good time. So thanks to them for manhandling this issue.
So another kind of question on the alternative energy, I haven't been able to attend any of them. The part of the mission was to sort of, go through the numbers on a whole project and then eventually come up with some guidance on other projects. And I know there's not like a one size fits all, I get that, but is the energy committee kind of getting towards how we would approach the bigger projects, or is it the same set of formulae?
I would
and
say
just
the
get to the
answer to
same?
that is no.
Okay.
What we're dealing with are community
So there's
solars.
variables on the bigger projects.
Community solars have a different economic model than the wholesale projects do, so to tell you that we can apply the same methodology to that, I don't know. As everyone should know, that the county's not even going to consider any project without them using their consultant to prepare an appraisal to give us the baseline to begin our discussions and thought process. The only appraisals we've seen have been on community solar projects. We have not seen one on one of the larger ones yet. I assume that's one of the things we're gonna be telling the larger Article 10 projects that they're gonna need to talk to the county on their guidelines for appraisals.
And Don, one's slightly more advanced than the other, like out of two. As far as where they are in their process, not our process, but,
Clearly, Oya is.
no, I meant the larger jobs. Forget
They're all-
oil.
they're
There's
all-
two-
they're
two
all
large-
in step
So they're
one.
both in similar stages in their
Yeah.
process. Forget about our process.
We
They
know
haven't even-
one is applied for Article
Okay.
10. Not sure about the other two, Paul may know more about that.
There are at least two in the Article 10 process
Okay.
now. Orlex and EDF are in there. I don't know about Geronimo. I have not seen those in the Article 10 filings yet.
Do we have another community solar project coming down in Adams area?
It's being discussed, sorry, Paul, I don't mean to jump in here. It's being discussed. They were waiting, and frankly, I advised them to do so, while the Energy Committee tackled the oil project, so we knew from our experience there how better to handle the one coming up in Adams. So they've been sitting, waiting for us to proceed, and then they'll go through the process. We just went through Oya, but we'll have, I think, a better understanding of the process. I'll add something to Paul's report because he wouldn't know it. I haven't had time to brief him on it. Last night, Chairman Bill and I attended a meeting in Chameau to talk about the Norbit project. There were about 30 people there from the community, from the schools, from the village, the town, and so on. And Bill and I presented the project as we understood it from Mr. Norbert. Now, we haven't talked to Mr. Dorman in some time because it has been somewhat stalled by perhaps lack of information. So we thought we'd go and do a presentation last night. We think it was a good presentation. We didn't get a firm reaction from anyone. That was not the purpose. It was to be informational. And then hopefully we'll get a reaction from Scott Albertine and Kami and others up in that area to see if we want to pursue that, if they want to pursue it. It too is a community solar, like Paul has described. They have a site. They've gone through most of their preliminary permitting. They've agreed to accept the new village and town solar law, which is in effect now. So I will be reporting to Mr. Norbert this morning and then to our committee to see whether he wants to pursue it farther, and if so, under what circumstance. We still have really got to sit down and go through the numbers with him. I think Paul would agree, we're some way off on his.
Well, the reality is there's significant difference between the two projects.
Yes.
Oya has tracking solar panels, so their output for the same amount of generation is higher because they track the sun. Norbert's aren't. Norbert originally had battery storage. When we had the appraisal done, that has since been removed, and we've been trying to get a handle on, okay, how does that affect the value of the project? So I have a feeling we're going to be asking him to get an updated appraisal with the cost and how does removing the batteries from the proposal adjust the market value of the project. Everyone's going to see the project, let's say it's $40 million. None of these projects will assess, even if we were full assessing them, at what they cost to build. The economics just don't cover full taxation. The cost is not what you're going to see them assessed at. So that's one of the reasons why we've been getting appraisals to get a handle on what's the difference between cost versus what its market value in the market is.
Which
Is
is,
the basis on energy output then, Paul? Is that what
Well, the appraisal looked at output, and these are using the developer's numbers, their expected output. What the expected power purchase agreement, because these community solars aren't wholesale power. If you go to the ISO website, you'll see what the gross, the wholesale price of power is. They get a much different cost, okay? So they're using their performance to do the appraisal. So it's on output, what their estimated income is, the inverters which convert to DC to AC, they have a cost for replacement. All those things are taken into account on a discounted cash flow model.
I think you described in one of the earlier meetings on the community projects, since the output is from their numbers and it's to the community, it's kind of at a set rate. It's different in the sense the large ones can actually sell power at a much greater, so weren't there some discussions about when power sold over a certain amount, you can reap additional revenue streams when they sell power higher, or is that's only on the large jobs, or was that on the small jobs?
They're pretty much locked in the community solar.
Yeah, so for the large jobs that could
We
apply.
haven't even got to those
Okay,
discussions.
I remember like this is 6, 8, 9 months ago, that there was general discussions about, right now power's at $80 a kilowatt. If it's at 120, you get a small slice of the extra.
They have to develop PPAs, Rob, otherwise they
Yeah,
can't.
well, I know we're way off.
Way
now,
off
but
on that.
I just wanna make sure, I seem to recall that would not apply to community solar, because really they're 100% locked in their long-term.
One of the benefits of this project that we talked about with the communities are that 40% of this power, you could sign up as a resident, anyone in National Grid's territory can sign up and save 10% on their utility costs, okay? Up to when you meet their threshold. 40% of it has to go to commercial properties. So there's benefits to anyone that wants to take advantage of it. So when you look at, there's almost $400,000 by the developer's estimate of benefits that could be reaped by Jefferson County people by signing up
which I think that throws it over into the general assumption I'll make is the community solar projects have a chance to generate or show generation of more revenue, slightly more revenue, or maybe even significantly more revenue than non-community. Is that a fair assessment?
We don't know that
It
completely
depends,
yet.
it really
It's
depends.
variable.
One of the
power
selling
costs
points
tomorrow.
are is there's benefits beyond to the community other than the pilot agreement that you can say with community solars that you may not be able to say with a wholesale project.
One thing that I think the board should know, and Paul can help speak to this, but the issue we're facing when we try to develop these projects is that the impact of these projects on the 2% property tax calculation and school aid formulas, and you've heard us talk about this a little bit, it almost becomes, and this is a little overstatement, but for schools, which are obviously an important segment that we talk to, it becomes neutral. So we work hard, we develop our community, we bring in projects worth $40, $50 million, and instead of adding great benefit to the schools, it essentially becomes a neutral impact because state aid is reduced by the amount of additional revenue we bring into the school district. So that is an issue that we are
State
constantly
aid's not
facing.
reduce their tax, they have to reduce their tax levy by the amount of the pilot.
So one of the things we're exploring at the moment, and I've asked Joe and his firm to see if we can investigate the procurement laws to see if we could take the 40% energy that Paul was describing and utilize that as a reduction in expense on the part of the schools. And if it were a reduction in expense, as we understand it, it would not impact negatively their school aid formula coming out of the state. So we're hoping that there may be some relief for the schools in doing so, and if so, it would certainly make these projects much more appealing. Last night, the concern at a group meeting in Chameau was the impacts on the schools primarily. And it's an issue that as a community we're going to have to address, but frankly as a state, because there's a lot of these alternative energy projects, the community-sized projects that are facing the same issue, including the one at Adams we're working on and others. So Paul mentioned battery storage. A couple of things, just to show you the value change. The value of that battery storage was, according to Norbit, $4.5 million, roughly $4.5 million. So when he withdrew that piece of the battery storage aspect, you can see how it changed the value of the project that we're dealing with.
I seem to recall from Norbert, they actually got a fairly significant portion subsidized by the state when they had batteries too, like some tax reduction in their project value.
There was
So
a
it wasn't
special
like 100%
initiative.
CapEx savings.
Yeah,
They
there
also
was.
surrendered some tax or other savings.
It came through NYSERDA. They had
Yeah.
what's called a PON, and that affected the battery
But that also
storage.
had a time
But
period
that-
that might have been
that
hard to
expired.
reach. Yeah.
So they lost that opportunity. The other issue I learned last night is they're facing the question about decommissioning, and they're trying, the NYSERDA recommends 125% of the value of the project for decommissioning purpose has to be set aside in one way or another. Now, most communities use a bond, but I've also seen it done with an irrevocable letter of credit from a major financial institution. So Norbit is having trouble locating that amount of a bond. So one of the things we'll have to address in committee is can we help them? Do we want to help them find another source for that decommissioning bond? So
Who's
there's
making?
a lot of moving parts.
Whose decision is that? Who's gonna make the decision? Is the state education department or state legislature gotta make the determination on allowing that?
Most decommissioning, for the larger projects, going to be part of the PSC project.
So
they're
the
gonna
public
have
service
to-
is gonna.
For small projects.
Most
For
is
small
only-
projects, it's gonna be at the local
They're
level.
just
At the
local
local
zone.
level, there's probably decommissioning in the Clayton project.
OIA has already provided decommissioning bonds to Orleans and Clayton.
All right, but coming back to.
You're talking about
re-examining-
procurement
well,
issue.
both questions apply, it's like who's making that decision?
Well,
Back to the school issue.
We think there's I'm hoping, I'm praying that there is a legal precedent for allowing schools to be somewhat flexible in what would become a single source. In this case, we could essentially design an RFP which says if they buy energy from someone, it has to be from a producer in Jefferson County, for example, to utilize more effectively all the generation we're trying to develop here. I don't know this yet. We're still, a ways off, and God, Joe and his group are pursuing this actively, but we're really hoping that this will help us push this over the finish line.
One last question I have is, this flurry of proposals sent to Article 10, how many, there's 3, but I think
3.
there's probably more ready to go in the
There's
House.
4 or 5 total that
Yeah,
have been
going
talked
into
about.
Article, the state, yeah. But for us, even looking at 2, because they're both right here, is there room?
Oh, in the state, there's probably 2 dozen.
Two
Oh,
dozen.
yeah, this is Jefferson County.
There's 4 or 5 that we
Alright.
talked about in this county.
Right, so can the grid, I mean, to my knowledge, there's always been the circuit breaker in the sense that there's room for 100 megawatt project, whether it's wind or solar, within the current system for, putting the power out and energizing the line. And now we've got potentially 3 projects that are gonna be at that capacity. Where's it going?
I don't know enough to answer that question yet, and that'll be up for the PSC to determine. Can't answer that. I mean, the one in Southern, there's a major transmission line.
Well,
Bill
going
would
back-
lead us to believe it's a substation is the biggest nut to crack, but then there's also the cable getting into the grid. That's why Apex was talking about going directly to
Right.
Oswego to get on the Marcy line.
We can, I think, tell you, Ed, that we are having discussions with a private company who's looking at transportation developed privately outside of the national grid, if you will. And that would only be possible if any of these projects were to come to fruition. That's a long way from today to when they're approved to move forward.
So where would that jump have to be? Where, say we've got surplus power generated in the county, and they've got to get, the Apex project that was gonna come up to Oswego, for like in a commercial project, if we put 3 of these, energize the line, where are they bumping to? Where's that? 100-mile transmission line, 50, 20?
Well, the last transmission line I saw was proposed to build. Didn't the governor squash that?
Well, some of these projects, like there's one proposed in Henderson, they're gonna go right on the power lines in front of it. They don't even need a substation. They're just dealing with inverting and knocking it down and putting it right on the power line. So some of these smaller projects actually have a hell of a lot more
Oh,
flexibility.
definitely, yeah.
You talking about the big one?
Yeah, how does the grid handle 3 100 megawatt projects?
That's a state issue.
Well, it's an Article 7, they're gonna have to go through some extensive approvals, but without getting into too many details, because I'm sure they don't wanna go there yet, but they are looking to respond to the fact that we might end up with additional generation. And the question is, how do they get it? Well, New York City is a prime customer, and they're prepared to pay a substantial amount for their energy, because they are currently paying a substantial amount. So the delta between what we can generate here and what it's sold for in New York presents opportunities for us here. It's a fairly big spread. So we want to find a way to try to capture some of that delta and use that here.
From the state to move into this is because they're gonna shutter some nuclear plants.
Nuclear and coal.
Right, and they're coming up in the next 2 years, I think, so I think
That's
that's this
right.
big drive and big push to get it.
Yeah, there's an enormous
solar
amount of pressure.
Towers to try to offset some of that lost energy.
Oh, absolutely.
But without that battery capacity, that's the new technology that's gonna change it, I think. Without the battery capacity, these projects need that nuclear plant to balance. So,
You need another form of energy, period.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Okay, let's move along. Building and grounds.
Building grounds, we met with a potential client again for the second time, and we gave them some options for going forward on the building over there. They have interest in probably the majority of the building. Our accountant items here. It gives an update, value of the building based on projected income and expenses. And that's something we can share with you later. The clients will be here at 8:45 for the executive session to discuss their proposal.
You may be in the lobby now.
And what they're doing here.
Thanks, sir.
Moving right along, manufacturing. Dave?
Busy month. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. Our safety training program is underway now. Our next session, lockout tagout, is later this month. We've got on, as you saw, the regional council report is out, so a couple of our manufacturers are listed as priority projects. Those are applications that we help with. So for those that are adding equipment and product lines, so that's good news for growth. As part of the Regional Economic Council too, which we're part of the 7 counties here, I'm also on the committee. We're working with the North Country Alliance. So on the 16th, we're actually going to be having some brainstorming with manufacturers across the region, including some locals, and getting some ideas for strategies, things that we incorporate the regional plan that also we can take into account for the county plan once we get the county going on the next version of the SEDS plan. That's on the 16th. On the 17th, we've got Manufacturing Day. Again, great response. We've got 30 schools across the 3 counties, 22 manufacturers hosting tours, and a little over 1,000 students participating. So it's always, the schedule, certain manufacturers can maybe even only handle 10 people for a tour, others can handle 40 to 50, so it's matching up group sizes. Some schools are bringing 100 kids, we have to break them up to different, set them to different places, others are smaller, so. But that's looking good again. That's going to be on the 17th, and then on the 18th, we've got, I talked to you before, we've got the tour of Fort Drum for area employers, kind of see the soldiers in their workplaces and see what they're doing on post in terms of IT work, working in the health center, working in the maintenance pools and all that kind of stuff, so they can see, so employers can see those transferable skills and maybe raise the recognition of that when employers can feel their workforce challenges, raise awareness of this talent pool here that we have 200 to 300 soldiers leaving Fort Drum each month. There's a talent pool right there they can draw on. So, and then the committee, the manufacturing council, is going to be meeting next on October 22nd.
Questions for Dave?
Your tour on Drum, is there, from my perspective, I find that very interesting. I'm curious to see within the Army, modern Army today, what they're doing in-house, what are their skill sets for us to attend.
Well, they're actually, that's maxed out now because they've got 50 people that are taking around, so that closed out. So we may talk about trying to arrange another one at a later date. But what we try to explain to them is that, these soldiers, from all the way from private up to the officers, they've got a wide variety of skills. It could be IT skills, it could be CDL licensed drivers for trucks and vehicles for those companies that need some logistics labor, IT skills. Even you've got people with professional engineering degrees and MBAs that so folks there's a number of soldiers that have worked at gone on to employment at companies like New York Air Brake or Current Applications and some others because they've got not just some skills, but they've also got those soft skills that employers are looking for, which is good work ethic. They know how to work in teams. They're resourceful. The stuff they have to do out in the field. So they've got all those combination of skills. So we're just constantly trying to remind employers of opportunities like this, the career fairs that are going on out there quarterly. Fort Drum tells us that we organize a tour. It kind of works both ways, making employers aware that this talent pool is there they can draw on to keep some of the soldiers in the area. But it's also making some of those soldiers that are transitioning out aware of the opportunities. So you may recall back in May, we had a tour for 30 soldiers to visit several of our facilities, and Lori Guler, who runs the program out there, said that that's actually led to getting some internship placements. Because when these soldiers are within like 6 months of leaving, they can actually be placed in a facility, so they can kind of be like an intern shadow, and it gives the employer a chance to see if that person's a match, but it also gives the soldier a chance to see if it's really something to be interested in. So
You're trying to keep it to one bus, is that
I guess so.
workable
Yeah.
group?
Yeah.
You want to drive a tank, don't you?
No. I got all the big equipment.
Marketing.
Good morning, everyone. Couple things. One sort of more kind of overarching thing. I'm seeing a lot of economic development agencies branding their overall outreach into an investment prospectus. We have all of these pieces. We have them all together actually in a folder that we will take and we give to prospective businesses. But that's one thing I'm going to be sort of rebranding. I like that, and I'm going to be sort of rebranding, the entirety of our outreach into an investment prospectus. I liked it, and so that's just one thing I just kind of want to throw out there. The voiceover actor is working on our script, and I'm expecting a draft back shortly for that. So that's progressing very quickly now, so that I hope to have a draft for you next month, if not sooner than that, possibly a lot sooner. As Dave mentioned, 3 of our CFAs got priority project status. Metalcraft, Easy Stack, and the Ag Park infrastructure project. I spoke with Mike Lawrenson actually last night. He called from Easy Stack and was excited about that. And they will be moving quickly into their new facility, the old former Packaging Corporation of America facility on Old Rome State, which is a 70,000 square foot plus facility, and that's going to be a $6 million project. So that's something to be excited about. And obviously, we've worked very hard on the Ag Park infrastructure project, and we're excited for that to be received as a priority project, and Metalcraft, of course. There's a lot of the pictures in the regional council report of Metalcraft because the ones that I took because they're kind of cool, welding shots and boats and all that stuff. So it's pretty great. Jay and I's trip to California. It was a great trip. As Jay and I joked that Palm Springs looked really great from the windows of the conference rooms. It was a rough go. 3 very quick days, long flight, and it was exhausting, but really great. And I want to just touch base on a couple of the key things from the marketing side. Jay's going to get a little bit more into the weeds of the program, but one of the things that everybody was talking about there is upcycling, which is taking a waste stream and turning that into a value-added product. There is a industry here. I'm not going to get any specifics on that. That there's a potential synergy that Jay and I think that they could be taking advantage of, so that was one specific thing that we thought was very interesting. And regenerative, which is a term that hasn't really made it this far yet in like the all natural organic world, and that's more I say all encompassing. This is they refer to it as organic on steroids, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an organic product. It's about being good for the soils, being good for your customers, living wages for your employees. It's sort of a really broad term that we're not hearing yet on the East Coast, but a lot of this kind of thing starts on the West Coast and moves its way east. So that was something that I thought was really interesting.
East Coast is calling it regenerative.
The West Coast is calling it regenerative.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
I thought when you said up, what was it, what?
Upcycling.
Upcycling, it's not up, it's regenerative.
Upcycling is different. Upcycling is taking a waste stream and then using something that you may.
Marshall.
Yes.
I misunderstood, you were tying them.
Was I
No,
confusing?
but there's a good example, Great Lakes Cheese upcycles their whey, which at one time was more of a waste product line, right, John? And now they upcycle that into
whey protein concentrate, which they, send to other countries for animal feed purposes. So that is an upcycled product. They're taking it out of the waste stream and making it into a value-added product.
Yeah.
Just on that.
Well, I think in industry, there's a big push for sustainability, and that's really what all this is coming down to.
Absolutely.
It's, natural resources, protect natural resources, protect the environment, and also be a good stewardship to business partners, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously, upcycling is a big part of the whole regenerative processing process, I guess, for lack of a better word. And there's some other thing. It was focused a lot on the future, and Jay's going to touch on that. And it's, technology plays an enormous part, and there was one tech company there, that we thought could have some benefit for some of our local businesses, and we're going to be talking to them about that. In something specific, there was a large condiment manufacturer outside of Toronto that Jay and I kind of became fast friends with, and they're experiencing a lot of delays in the Buffalo area, getting their product over. So we talked with them about the Thousand Islands border crossing, and then possibly using also a local brokerage services firm for their product, getting it down into the Mid-Atlantic states. So that was one thing that from a specific. This was a project. We went into how can we help our local businesses, potentially with some new technology. There's another company, and I have some notes here in draft form that I'm going to be getting out to you guys. And I actually have them on my desk right now, so if anybody wants to grab some on the way out, that'd be great. But it was a really great program, and we learned a lot, and about the future. There are some things that we can do now to help some of our local businesses, and we're excited about it. So, any questions? Thank you.
You could ask for, a delay, postpone this activity, bring them in, convene the other, we could do it a little out of
Did you do that in this meeting, Joe?
I think you probably need to do it in the IDA meeting, but you
Yeah.
could adjourn this meeting and open the IDA meeting to do that.
On today's report. How long do you need, Jay?
He's got like 18 pages of single-spaced notes.
We could ask Jay to stick around for the IDA meeting and report then.
Can you stick around, or you got something?
I'll put in word to the radio station, I'll step out, because I record, but I can alter it till tomorrow, change it till tomorrow. So I'll go do that and stay for coming back. I'll be back.
So
For everyone's information, we have a need to go into an executive session in the IDA, so I would ask that we adjourn this meeting temporarily and so that we can go into the IDA.
I would move we adjourn this meeting until the end of the ITA meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Yes. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting stands adjourned.